Out of nowhere, a bizarre notice popped up in our building's WhatsApp group chat. Hey, everyone, we didn't pay our internet bill this month because we don't want our baby getting addicted to screens. However, we occasionally need it for work and entertainment. Therefore, we expect our neighbors to share their connection. Our online hours will be from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. daily. During this time, please do not use your own Wi-Fi so we can enjoy maximum speed. I will be adding the neighbors on our floor. Please accept my request immediately and send over your password. The message was sent by the tenants in apartment 9A. I lived in apartment 9C. A second later, a friend request popped up on my phone. I swiped decline without hesitating and replied in the group. Did God run out of skin when he was making your face? Or did he just double layer your AUD gravity? You've got some nerve. Within minutes, my doorbell rang like crazy. Through the security camera, I saw a man and a woman standing there looking ready to start a riot. The woman had her hands on her hips, practically screaming at the camera. Open up. What the hell is your problem? Hurry up. My husband has a document to edit. And you're the only one on this floor who isn't asleep. Wow, a match made in heaven. Two complete lunatics tapped the intercom and let out a sarcastic drawl. Hey, why don't you guys just come on in? I can slice up some fresh fruit, brew a nice pot of tea, turn on the AC, and let him work on my couch. Would you like a foot massage with that too? The husband, looking clueless, beamed and whispered to his wife. Wait, seriously? That actually sounds awesome. The wife was slightly smarter. She smacked him hard on the back of his head. Are you an idiot? She's being sarcastic. I turned back to my door and started pounding on it again. Come on, just give us the Wi-Fi password. He has to finish editing by 11 p.m. so he can get his 8 hours of sleep. If he doesn't, it's bad for his immune system. Their sheer unadulterated entitlement actually made me laugh. Well, pulling up my phone to text the local police dispatch, I kept them talking through the intercom. Fine, get your phone ready. In the camera monitor, I saw the husband eagerly pull out his phone, navigating to the Wi-Fi settings. The password is 9AR, idiots. The husband tapped his screen 6 times, frowned and muttered, wait, it says incorrect password. His wife smacked him again. She's calling us idiots. You dumbass. The internet was right. A lot of people are functionally brain dead, but because they can feed themselves, society treats them like normal citizens. These two were prime examples. The woman wouldn't give up, continuing to rattle my doorknob. I didn't get it. Why was her husband's job my responsibility? Was his salary going into my bank account? Just then, heavy footsteps echoed in the hallway. The police had arrived. The woman spun around, looking at the officers like they were her personal saviors. Oh, thank goodness, officers. You're finally here. The officer blinked, confused. Did you call us? I threw open my door. No, I did. I laid out the entire story, adding just enough dramatic flair to make them look as ridiculous as possible. The 2 officers and the building security guard, who followed them up, stood there in stunned silence. But Brenda, the wife, immediately put on a victim act. Officers, we're neighbors. What's wrong with helping each other out? Not only is she cold-hearted, but she also insulted us. I'm pretty sure verbal harassment is a crime. You should arrest her. The officer looked like he was physically restraining himself from rolling his eyes. He said sternly, Ma'am, it's 10 o'clock at night. Banging on doors and screaming in the hallway is disturbing the peace. As for the internet, she has absolutely no obligation to share her private network with you. I suggest you call a provider and set up your own service tomorrow. Then he turned to me with a tired sigh. Look, miss, just to resolve this for tonight, so everyone can get some sleep, would you mind letting them use it just this once? You can change your password first thing tomorrow morning. I didn't want to, but I didn't want to make things difficult for the cops either. I reluctantly rattled off a temporary password. And you too, the officer warned the couple. Do not knock on her door again. Once the police and the guard left, I slammed my door shut and locked it. Through the thin walls, I could faintly hear Brenda giggling.
Yay.
Hurry up and do your work, babe. I'm going to stream that show I missed earlier. Stream. Screaming at the office during lunch just wasn't the same. Her husband, Greg, mumbled something about keeping the volume down, so it wouldn't be too noisy. Brenda clearly ignored him. 5 minutes later, my router app notified me that 4 new devices had connected. 2 iPhones, a smart TV, and a MacBook. A wicked idea popped into my head. I opened my casting app, synced up to their smart TV, and cast a terrifying jump scare clip from a horror movie. At maximum volume, I let it play for 3 seconds, cut the feed, and repeated it. A muffled blood-curdling shriek echoed from apartment 9A. Satisfied, I changed my Wi-Fi password to something entirely different and went to bed with a huge smile on my face. Next morning, I ran into Maya, the tenant from apartment 9B, right outside the elevator. She was about my age. When our eyes met, she immediately asked, "Hey, did that crazy couple try to add you on WhatsApp too?" I gave her a solemn, heavy nod. She gave me a look of pure sympathy. It was clear she hadn't been spared either. Maya introduced herself and explained she worked rotating shifts at a local hospital. She had been on the night shift last night, which was the only reason she had escaped the initial drama. "My friend is a teacher at the elementary school down the street," Maya whispered, leaning in. "She actually has their kid in her class. Apparently, those parents are a teacher's absolute worst nightmare." She pulled out her phone and showed me a few leaked screenshots from the parent-teacher portal. The husband was Greg Thompson, the wife was Brenda, and their kid was named Braxton Hunter. Yes, double-barrel and incredibly pretentious. The messages Brenda sent to the teacher were gold. "Miss Kelly, Braxton Hunter's pee was a bit dark when he got home today. Please personally monitor his water intake during recess." Patched was a high-resolution photo of a child's toilet bowl. "Miss Kelly, why does Braxton Hunter's textbook have a bent page? Did you not inspect it before handing it out? This feels like a targeted microaggression against my son. Miss Kelly, Braxton Hunter doesn't like cooked onions. Please. Instruct the school cafeteria to swap out onions for garlic when preparing his lunch." My skin crawled just reading them. Since the Thompsons had just moved in, our peaceful hallway was officially a war zone. While we were whispering, a sharp nasal voice cut through the air. "Hey 9C, did you do that on purpose last night?" It was the dark urine mom herself, Brenda. "So what if I did?" I rolled my eyes. Her face contorted in rage for a second, before she snapped her head toward Maya. "And you, 9B, why haven't you accepted my request? Send me your Wi-Fi password. I heard you work nights, so you're not even using your internet then. Anyway, it's just going to waste." Maya didn't hold back. "Well, your apartment is empty during the day, right? I need a place to sleep after my shift. Why don't you let me sleep in your bed? Otherwise, it's just going to waste." Brenda's eyes popped. "Look at you two. Not a single ounce of ladylike grace spitting venom like that. You both look so thin and sickly. Anyway, no wonder you don't have the blessing of raising a strong son." I slapped my hands on my hips. "Wow. Did you gargle with sewage this morning? Or is that just your natural breath?" Just then, Braxton Hunter waddled out of their apartment. He was exactly what I expected. A round, greasy kid holding a half-eaten hot dog. After a few steps, dropped it right onto the dusty carpet of the hallway. Brenda rushed over, picked up the fuzzy hot dog, blew on it twice, and shoved it right back into her son's mouth. Maya and I stared absolutely horrified. Fortunately, Brenda was running late to drop her golden boy off at school, so she couldn't linger. As the elevator doors closed, Maya turned to me. "So what do we do?" "She's definitely going to come back for the password. We can't keep doing this forever. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it." I sighed. But that bridge arrived much sooner than expected. That very evening, Brenda knocked again. This time, she wasn't asking for the Wi-Fi password. She wanted my door lock code. She claimed they had relatives visiting from out of state, and their apartment was too crowded. She wanted Maya and me to share our apartments. "Simple," Brenda said, her tone incredibly generous. "Since you work during the day, my relatives can stay at your place. And since Maya works at night, they can sleep at her place. We aren't asking for free either. We'll pay you $20 a day. 20 whole dollars. Wow. How would I ever spend such a fortune? Get lost before I call the cops again," I said coldly. But Brenda chose to play dirty. "If you won't let them stay, I'll just have them set up air mattresses right here in the hallway. Don't complain when they're blocking your door." To prove her point, she immediately dragged out several trash bags, dirty laundry hampers, and a plastic bucket, placing them right outside my doorway. She was declared war. If she wanted to bring guests, I could play that game too. Coincidentally, my mom had called me earlier crying about my grandma. Ever since my grandfather passed away, my notoriously hot-tempered grandma had been living with my parents, mother-in-law. Tension was through the roof. I dialed my mom back immediately. "Mom, pack grandma's bags. Send her to Chicago. She's 75 and she is ready to rumble." My grandma Evelyn was a force of nature in our family. We called her Grandma on demon mode. Grandma Evelyn touched down at O'Hare less than 24 hours later. When I picked her up at baggage claim, she was wearing a velour track suit the color of crushed eggplants, oversized Chanel sunglasses, and a scowl that could curdle. Milk. She carried a single, battered leather cane with a solid brass duck head. For a handle. She didn't strictly need the cane for walking, but she liked it. For, in her words, making a goddamn point. Let's get one thing straight, Grandma said, tossing her leopard print suitcase into the trunk of my car. Your mother's house is a zoo. Your father is chewing his food too loudly, and I haven't had a decent fight since the HOA tried to tell me my hydrangeas were too aggressive. Give me the intel on these hallway squatters. I gave her the rundown on the drive home. Brenda, Greg, Braxton Hunter, the Wi-Fi demands, the door codes, the hallway trash blockade. Grandma just listened, her jaw set, occasionally nodding while tapping the brass duck head against the floor mat. When we stepped out of the elevator onto the 9th floor, Brenda's garbage barricade was still there. 3 black trash bags, a hamper overflowing with soiled clothes, and a plastic bucket right against my door. It smelled faintly of old mayonnaise and entitlement. Grandma Evelyn stopped. She slowly lowered her sunglasses. Is this the enemy encampment? She asked, her voice dangerously quiet. That's it, I said, fishing for my keys. I was going to kick it down the hall yesterday, but I figured I'd wait for the expert. Good girl, Evelyn purred. She didn't use her hands. She simply hooked the crook of her cane around the nearest trash bag, gave a heave that defied her. 75 years of age, and launched it directly at apartment 9's door. It hit the wood with a heavy, wet smack. Next went the hamper. Evelyn executed a flawless golf swing with her cane, tipping it completely over. Dirty socks, stained t-shirts, and a terrifying pair of bedazzled leopard print thongs scattered across Brenda's welcome mat. Oops, Grandma said, deadpan. Clumsy me. The noise was loud enough to wake the dead. 10 seconds later, the door to 9A flew open. Brenda stood there, face red, a messy bun vibrating on top of her head with pure rage. What the hell are you doing? She shrieked, looking at the spilled laundry and the trash bag leaking onto her doormat. Are you insane? You can't touch my stuff. Evelyn casually leaned on her cane, looking Brenda up and down as if inspecting a particularly disappointing piece of produce. I'm sorry, Evelyn said, her voice dripping with southern fried condescension. I didn't realize the city dump had expanded to the 9th floor. I was just clearing the fire hazard. You're welcome, dear. Fire hazard. I told this. Brenda pointed a trembling finger at me. This selfish bitch that if she didn't let my family stay in her empty apartment, we'd have to use the hallway. It's her fault. Oh, sweetheart, Grandma chuckled, a dry, raspy sound. The only thing that's her fault is not calling animal control on you sooner. Now, pick up your filthy undergarments before I call the building manager and have you fined for bioterrorism. And if you ever leave trash in front of my granddaughter's door again, I will personally stuff it down your throat until you choke on your own poor life choices. Brenda's mouth opened and closed like a dying carp. She wasn't used to this. She was used to polite society, to people backing down because she was loud and obnoxious. Evelyn was from a generation that drank from the garden hose and solved disputes with switchblades. I'm calling the police. Brenda sputtered. Do it. Evelyn smiled brightly. I love the police. They have such handsome uniforms. Tell them Evelyn is here. I'll put the kettle on. Brenda slammed her door so hard the drywall dusted the floor. I unlocked my door, grinning ear to ear. Grandma, you're a legend. That was just the warm-up, kiddo, she said, stepping inside and looking around. Now, where's the thermostat? And tell me we have a good view of the hallway camera. The real war began 2 days later, on a Friday. Maya, the nurse from 9B, came over for coffee and to meet Evelyn. Maya looked like a walking ghost. She had just finished a grueling rotation, and dark circles hung heavily under her eyes. They arrived, Maya mumbled, wrapping her hands around the warm mug. The relatives. I heard them in the elevator. Right on cue, a cacophony of loud voices, thudding luggage, and dragging plastic echoed from the hallway. I pulled up my doorbell camera feed on the iPad and propped it on the kitchen island. Grandma Evelyn put on her reading glasses and leaned in. Through the screen, we watched Brenda leading a pack of 4 people. There was a woman who looked like an older, somehow more aggressively styled version of Brenda, a hulking man in a stained tank top, and 2 feral-looking teenagers, glued to their phones. Okay, guys, Brenda announced loudly in the hall, clearly hoping we could hear her through the doors, since our horrible neighbors refused to show a shred of Community spirit, we're just going to have to set up camp right here. Blow up the mattresses. The hulking man dropped two massive, folded air mattresses right in the middle of the hallway, directly obstructing the path between the elevator and my apartment, effectively boxing in Maya's door as well. They're not actually going to sleep in the hallway, I said, dumbfounded. Management will fine them to oblivion. Let them, Evelyn said, her eyes gleaming. But in the meantime, it's a public hallway, isn't it? Which means it's a shared space. And shared spaces require shared activities. Evelyn turned to Maya. Sweetheart, what time do you usually sleep? From about 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., Maya said miserably. But with them right outside my door, I don't know how I'll manage. You go home, put in your best earplugs, and take some melatonin, Evelyn ordered. I'll handle the noise control. As soon as Maya left, Evelyn got to work. She went into her suitcase and pulled out a small, unassuming bottle with a dropper. What's that? I asked. Fox urine, she replied casually. Got it from a hunting supply store. Your grandfather used to use it to keep raccoons out of the sweet corn. Smells like death, sulfur, and unwashed gym socks. A single drop will clear a room for a week. Grandma, no. It'll stink up our place too. Relax, amateur, she said, winking. We're not putting it on our side. Evelyn cracked our door open just an inch. The hallway was empty for the moment. The relatives had piled into 9A to grab bedding. With the precision of a seasoned sniper, Evelyn used a plastic water gun she'd bought at the dollar store, loaded it with exactly 3 drops of fox urine diluted in water, and shot a fine mist directly onto the fabric tops of the uninflated air mattresses. Then, she shut the door, locked it, and taped a plastic trash bag over the gaps. In our doorframe, we turned on all our air purifiers. 15 minutes later, the yelling started. We watched the iPad. The hulking man, Uncle Tank Top, had brought out an electric pump and started inflating the mattresses. As the air expanded the fabric, the scent dispersed. Through the thin walls, we heard a gagging sound. Oh my God, what is that smell? The older Brenda clone screeched, stumbling out of 9A and clutching her nose. It smells like a sewer died, Tank Top yelled, dropping the air pump. Brenda rushed out, covering her face with her shirt. It's coming from the mattresses. Did you let the dog pee on these in the garage? We don't even have a dog, Brenda. Well, they stink. Get them out of here. We watched in absolute silent hysterics as Tank Top frantically dragged the half-inflated, foul-smelling mattresses toward the elevator, gagging the entire way. They had to wait 3 full minutes for the car to arrive, stewing in the invisible cloud of olfactory misery. Score 1 for the elderly, Evelyn said, sipping her tea. But Brenda wasn't one to accept defeat gracefully. The air mattress plan was foiled, so they crammed all 6 of them into the tiny 2-bedroom apartment. By Saturday morning, the tension in 9A was explosive, and it spilled out into the hallway. Braxton Hunter, the greasy spawn, was sent into the hall to play because the apartment was too crowded. His version of playing consisted of bouncing a hard rubber lacrosse ball against the shared wall of my apartment. Thwack, thwack, thwack. It was 7:30 a.m. I groaned and pulled a pillow over my head, but Grandma Evelyn was already up. I heard the front door open. I scrambled out of bed and rushed to the living room, terrified she was going to commit a felony. I peered through the crack in the door. Evelyn was standing over Braxton Hunter, who paused mid-throw, staring up at her with his mouth open, half-chewed cereal visible on his tongue. Good morning, young man, Evelyn said, her voice sickeningly sweet. I'm supposed to play out here, the kid mumbled belligerently. Mom said. Of course you are. But that ball looks so boring, Evelyn said. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a shiny, brand new kazoo and a massive 24-pack of permanent Sharpies. Wow, Braxton breathed. I hear you like to draw, Evelyn whispered conspiratorially. I bet your mother would love it if you drew a beautiful mural on the inside of your front door. It'll be a surprise. And when you're done, you can play this magical instrument as loud as you can to celebrate. She handed him the markers and the kazoo. Don't tell her I gave them to you. It's a secret mission, Evelyn added, tapping her nose. Braxton nodded furiously, abandoning the lacrosse ball and waddling back into 9A, clutching his weapons of mass destruction. Evelyn stepped back inside and quietly closed the door. Give it 20 minutes, she said, walking to the kitchen to fry some bacon. It didn't even take 20. At 7:48 a.m., a shriek echoed from 9A that rattled the light fixtures. It was Brenda. Braxton Hunter. What did you do to the walls? Is this permanent marker? And what is that god-awful noise? A frantic, high-pitched bzzzzzz from the kazoo cut through the yelling. We heard heavy footsteps, slamming doors, and the undeniable sound of chaos erupting among the cramped relatives. You see, Grandma explained, flipping a strip of bacon, the key to defeating a Karen is not to fight her directly. It's to give her own ecosystem the tools to destroy itself. By Sunday, Brenda had figured out that we were behind her misery. She couldn't prove the fox urine, and she couldn't prove the markers, but her hateful glares at our doorbell camera were enough to confirm her suspicions. It was time for her counterattack. That afternoon, I was sitting on the couch working on my laptop, while Grandma watched a true crime documentary. Suddenly, the power in my apartment cut out. The TV died, the AC stopped humming, and my laptop screen dimmed to battery power. Did we blow a fuse? I asked, standing up. I opened my phone and switched off Wi-Fi to use cellular data. I pulled up the cloud-stored footage of our doorbell camera, which had a battery backup. There, in glorious 1080p, was Greg Thompson. He had opened the utility closet in the hallway, the one that housed the breaker boxes for the entire floor. He was looking over his shoulder nervously, reaching in and flipping a switch. Then he scurried back into 9A. Oh, he did not just touch our breaker. I growled, my blood pressure spiking. That's it. I'm calling the cops. Tampering with a utility box is illegal. Wait, Evelyn commanded. She put a hand on my wrist. Cops will just tell building management, they'll flip it back, give him a warning, and we're back to square one. We need to make this hurt. How? Do you still have access to their smart TV? She asked, a wicked grin spreading across her wrinkled face. No. I changed my Wi-Fi password, remember? They're off my network. But didn't you tell me the idiot husband couldn't figure out the Wi-Fi earlier? Do you think they bought their own router yet? Probably not, I realized. Brenda said it was a weekend, the installers wouldn't come until Tuesday. So how are they entertaining those feral teenagers and that brat? Evelyn mused. Turn your Wi-Fi router back on. Change the password back to the temporary one you gave them on Thursday. Let's see if they reconnect. I walked over to the router, which was plugged into an uninterruptible power supply UPS I kept for my home server. The internet was still live. I logged into the admin portal on my phone and changed the password back. 5 minutes later, my device list populated. Greg's iPhone, Brenda's iPad, living room, smart TV. They're back on, I whispered. Excellent, Evelyn said, rubbing her hands together. First, I'm going to go flip our breaker back on. When I do, I want you to throttle their internet speed to the absolute minimum. Give them just enough juice to load a web page, but make it take 5 minutes. Make their videos buffer every 3 seconds. Psychological torture. I grinned. I love it. Evelyn marched out to the hallway, grabbed the utility box handle, and flipped our power back on. Greg had clearly forgotten to lock the panel. I went into my router's quality of service, QoS, settings and hard-capped the bandwidth for all their devices to 128 kbps, basically dial-up speeds. For the next 2 hours, the wails of frustration from 9A were music to our ears. Mom, the Netflix won't load. One of the teenagers whined loudly enough for us to hear. I'm lagging. I'm lagging, Braxton screamed, presumably playing a game. Greg, fix the damn internet. Brenda snapped. I'm trying, Brenda. It says connected, but it's just spinning. As night fell, I decided to elevate the game. If they were connected to my network, I had control. Maya had texted me earlier saying she was awake, and the noise from 9A was driving her insane, especially the teenagers blasting TikToks. Maya, get ready for a show. I texted her. Come over to my place. Bring popcorn. Maya slipped into my apartment a few minutes later, looking utterly exhausted, but eager for revenge. What's the plan? Maya asked, collapsing onto my couch. We're going to teach them about cybersecurity, I said, opening up my casting app. I waited until 11 p.m., the time Brenda had previously decreed we must all log off so Greg could sleep. The apartment next door was finally settling down. The lights in their living room, visible under their door on the camera, went dark. I synced my phone to their smart TV. Instead of a jump scare this time, I chose something far more insidious. I found a 10-hour YouTube loop of a baby crying, mashed up with the sound of someone violently scratching a chalkboard. I cast it to their TV, cranked the volume to 100% and hit play. Wah! Screet. The sound blasted through the walls like a physical shockwave. Inside 9A, absolute pandemonium broke loose. I heard Greg shout in terror. Brenda started screaming. "Turn it off! Turn it off! I can't! The remote isn't working!" Greg yelled. I had locked the casting session so it couldn't be paused via the remote. "Unplug the damn TV." The noise abruptly cut out, but I wasn't done. "Oh, you think that's it?" I muttered. I noticed Brenda's iPad was still connected. I opened a web browser, logged into a free text-to-speech generator, and set it to a deep, robotic voice. I typed, "I see you, Brenda. Get out of my hallway." Through the thin walls, from the direction of Brenda's bedroom, a loud, artificial voice boomed out of her iPad speakers. "I see you, Brenda. Get out of the hallway." A blood-curdling scream tore out of Brenda's throat. "Greg, the iPad. It's possessed. The hacker is back. Throw it in the hall," Greg yelled. A second later, Brenda's front door opened, and an iPad came skittering across the hallway floor, smashing against the baseboard. She slammed the door and locked the deadbolt loudly. Maya was clutching her stomach, laughing so hard no sound was coming out. Grandma Evelyn was nodding in stoic approval, wiping a tear of mirth from her. You," Evelyn said to me, "are truly my blood." Monday morning brought the climax of our war. Brenda and Greg had reached their breaking point. They looked like reanimated corpses when they left to drop Braxton off at school. Their relatives had apparently fled in the middle of the night to a hotel, unable to handle the marker-stained walls, the phantom crying TV, and the haunted electronics. But Brenda was vindictive. She had decided that if she was going down, she was taking us with her. Around noon, Maya was asleep in 9B. I was working from home. Grandma Evelyn was sitting in the living room, polishing her brass duck cane. My doorbell app chimed. Motion detected. I pulled up the feed. It wasn't Brenda. It was Greg, and he had a tool bag. He looked sweaty and frantic. He walked straight to the utility closet. "He's going for the power again," I said, standing up. "Not this time," Evelyn said, rising with startling speed. She grabbed her cane. "Record this." I grabbed my phone, hit record on the camera app, and followed Evelyn to the door. We opened it silently. Greg had the utility box open. He wasn't just flipping breakers this time. He had a pair of wire cutters in his hand and was reaching toward the main lines. For apartment 9C, he was going to cut my wires. "Excuse me, Bob the Builder," Evelyn barked, her voice echoing like a gunshot in the quiet hallway. Greg jumped out of his skin, dropping the wire cutters. They clattered loudly on the tile. He spun around, his eyes wide with panic. I was just checking the fuses," Greg stammered, sweating profusely. "With wire cutters?" I stepped out, holding my phone up, recording his face, the open panel, and the drop tool. "That's property damage and tampering with critical infrastructure." At that moment, the elevator dinged. Out stepped the building manager, Mr. Henderson, accompanied by 2 police officers. I had emailed Mr. Henderson the video of Greg flipping the breakers the day before, explicitly stating I felt unsafe and requesting an inspection. His timing couldn't have been more perfect. Mr. Henderson, a no-nonsense man who had dealt with enough tenant drama to last 3 lifetimes, took one look at the open panel, the wire cutters on the floor, and Greg's guilty, pale face. "Mr. Thompson," Henderson said smoothly, "care to explain why you are attempting to vandalize the building's electrical system?" She hacked my TV," Greg blurted out, pointing at me like a toddler. "They're torturing us. We just wanted some sleep. My wife said we had to cut their power so they'd stop." The older of the 2 officers sighed, putting a hand on his duty belt. "Sir, are you admitting to attempting to cut the power lines to another tenant's apartment?" "Well, yes, but—" "Turn around and put your hands behind your back," the officer said, stepping forward. "Wait, what?" "No. Brenda told me to do it." Greg whined as the officer clicked the handcuffs around his wrists. Right on cue, Brenda stepped out of the elevator. She had just returned from her morning yoga class, holding an iced matcha latte. She froze. She saw her husband in handcuffs, the police, the building manager, me holding my phone, and Grandma Evelyn leaning on her cane, smiling like the Cheshire Cat. "Greg, what is going on?" Brenda shrieked, dropping her latte. The green liquid splattered everywhere. "Ma'am, your husband was just caught attempting to sever the electrical lines to apartment 9C, the officer stated. "Because they're cyberbullying us. Brenda screamed, her face turning a mottled purple. Arrest them. That old bat threw my laundry and that bitch hacked my iPad. They put fox urine on my air mattresses. Mr. Henderson pinched the bridge of his nose. Mrs. Thompson, in the 4 days you have lived here, I have received noise complaints from floors 8, 9, and 10. You left trash in the hallway, which is a fire code violation. Your son drew all over the interior doors with permanent marker, which comes out of your deposit. And now your husband is being arrested for vandalism. You can't do this. We're the victims here, Brenda wailed, trying to push past the second officer to get to me. Grandma Evelyn took one step forward, planting her cane firmly between Brenda and myself. Listen to me very carefully, Brenda, Evelyn said, her voice dropping all pretense of southern sweetness. It was cold, hard steel. You are not a victim. You are a bully who finally picked a fight with someone who hits back. You wanted the world to bend to your ridiculous, spoiled demands, and you found out the hard way that the universe doesn't care about your delicate sensibilities. Now pack your bags, take your marker-sniffing kid, and get out of our building. You can't evict us, Brenda sobbed, looking at Henderson. Actually, the lease explicitly states that criminal activity on the premises, including vandalism to building utilities, is grounds for immediate termination of the lease. You have 72 hours to vacate the premises, Henderson said flatly. I'll be sending the formal notice to your inbox momentarily. The police escorted a weeping, utterly defeated Greg toward the elevator. Brenda stood frozen in the hallway, the reality of her shattered ego and impending homelessness crashing down on her. She looked at me, then at Evelyn, her eyes filled with venom but devoid of any fight. Without a word, she turned and scurried into 9A, slamming the door. I lowered my phone, letting out a breath I felt like I'd been holding for 4 days. Maya's door creaked open. She poked her head out, her hair messy, eyes wide. Did I miss it? Just the grand finale, I smiled. Evelyn chuckled, turning back toward my apartment. Come on inside, girls. I think it's time we popped that bottle of Prosecco you've been hiding in the fridge. I have a sudden craving for mimosas. Epilogue. 3 days later, movers arrived and hastily cleared out apartment 9A. Brenda didn't say a single word to us on her way out. She wore large sunglasses and walked briskly with her head down, pulling a screaming Braxton Hunter by the hand. Greg, who had been bailed out pending his vandalism charges, carried the last box, looking utterly broken. When the door to 9A finally clicked shut and the elevator doors closed on them, for the last time, a profound, beautiful silence fell over the 9th floor. That evening, I set up a small folding table in the hallway, right where the trash barricade used to be. Maya brought over a homemade lasagna, and Grandma Evelyn provided a suspiciously strong pitcher of margaritas. We sat in the quiet hallway, eating, drinking, and laughing. So, Grandma, I said, pouring her another drink. How long are you staying? Evelyn took a slow sip of her margarita, eyeing the empty door of 9A. Well, she smiled, her eyes crinkling with mischief. I hear the HOA back home is trying to ban decorative lawn gnomes. I figure I'll give them a week to feel safe before I go back and unleash hell. Until then, pass the lasagna.